Now you can't help but notice that I've got several pieces left over from those 12 candy bowls that I made. And I'm wondering if possibly I can't use this purple heart that's left over and make a platter that will match the special bowl, like this purple heart here. And I'm going to see what I can do here. Now it only takes me about 5 minutes to glue up a set of rings there on those Christmas candy bowls, but then I have to wait about 12 hours for them to dry enough so that I can glue up another batch. So I got a lot of time in between, and I'm thinking I may as well do something constructive here while I'm waiting. Now these little extra pieces, they'll make a ring exactly that diameter. Well, I want the platter to be larger, of course, at least 2 inches larger. And I want to be able to use these leftover mahogany pieces. So that means I'm going to have to cut at least 6 pieces of aspen that are a little longer. My plan is that I want to use these 2 pieces of leftover mahogany as the base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip this shorter one right up the middle, and I'll glue one side against this and the other side against here, and then I should be able to get a larger diameter base than what the bowls are. Okay, I'm going to just let that sit overnight and see what I got in the morning. Well, that feels pretty hard. I'm going to take a chance and run it through the drum sander and flatten this thing out. Well, it's not dry there. I have to scrape that off. Okay, I think we got rid of about 95 or more % of the glue. It probably took me about 5 minutes to set this machine up, but it does such a beautiful job it's well worth it. It sands something perfectly flat. I should emphasize though, it is not a thickness planer. If you wanted to take a piece of wood down in dimension, it would take an awful lot of passes, but it does a really good job of sanding something flat. Okay, let's see if I can cut this into a circle now. So what is supposed to happen is this hole that I just drilled is supposed to fit over this pin. It sticks up just a little bit out of this jig. You can see that this base that we just cut for the platter is quite a bit larger than the ones that I'm using on the Christmas candy balls. And this is going to give me a platter, I'm guessing by the time I get through flaring out the segments, probably 11, maybe 12 inches. That'll hold a lot of Christmas cake. I have a friend who's also into woodworking. The only difference between him and me is he knows what he's going to end up with because he goes by the plan. I hardly ever go by a plan unless I draw it myself, and then half the time I don't stick to it. So what I'm thinking right now is, why don't I take these segmented rings, glue them together like this, and make a pedestal. And then the bowl will be fastened to the pedestal, and then those purple heart pieces that I'm going to cut up, they'll go around the outside, and it'll just sort of flare out, be a nice purple heart ring all the way around the outside. Well, at least that's the plan right now. We'll see what happens. Well, I've come up to one little bit of a disappointment, I guess you'd call it. Nothing serious, but I can see that this platter is not going to be as big as I thought it was going to be. So by the time I get through gluing the segments on there, we're looking at maybe only 9 inches. Another change I'm going to have to make is, I was hoping to be able to use this, but I'm realizing that it's just going to be too thin here on the very edge. It'll be too easily broken. It's got to be a little thicker than that. So I'm going to have to use this piece of Purple Heart that I got from Canadian Woodworker. It's actually more purpley than this anyway. I'll just have to rip it out, rip it down the middle here. It's a little narrower here where they rough sawed it, so I'll have to get the same thickness all the way along. And I guess the first thing I got to do is square up this side here. Just run this through the jointer here and get it nice and flat. Then I can go from there. You should remember hearing me say my drum sander is not a thickness planer. Well, this is a thickness planer. What I want to do is I want to make this the same thickness all the way along. Where it was rough sawed here, it's a little bit on the thin side. So I'm just going to run it through. And it's extremely noisy. Now if you have to rip a piece of wood like we're doing right here and you want to lose as little material as possible, well, you want to use a Laguna Resaw King. That's what I'm using here. It has a really nice thin curve. Now these are pretty much the same thickness already, but this one is just a smidgen thicker than this one. So I'm going to run them through the thickness planer and just bring them down so that they're both exactly the same. Well, that's it. It can't get any better than that. All it'll do is get thinner. Now I've estimated that using this dimension of Purple Heart, the ring can be a maximum of 9 inches in diameter. So we got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that's about right. So what I have to do is make each segment that long. Now, being as I only need 12 pieces here, I'm not going to waste a whole bunch of time setting up the small piece catcher. I'll just carefully catch each one with my fingers.